Love's the root of life, love's the core of wisdom. Life without love is a life forever falling in the endless night, drifting in a sea of pain. A love for the dawn that leads to one sunny spring. God is virtuous and kind, God is almighty, and you teach us true meaning of love. Being selfless, we offer to help all beings. You give us wisdom, and I am forever grateful. With sacred virtue, purity, God loves all beings. You teach us ethics. With fraternity, compassion, God loves all beings. You teach us morals. Sincerity, loyalty, God loves all beings. You teach us causality. With the teachings of sages, God loves all beings. Like shape of salvation, free us from darkness. Love's the root of life, love's the core of wisdom. Life without love is a life forever falling in the endless night, drifting in a sea of pain. A love for the dawn that leads to one sunny spring. God is virtuous and kind, God is almighty, and you teach us true meaning of love. Being selfless, we offer to help all beings. You give us wisdom, and I am forever grateful. With sacred virtue, purity, God loves all beings. You teach us ethics. With fraternity, compassion, God loves all beings. You teach us morals. With sincerity, loyalty, God loves all beings. You teach us causality. With the teachings of sages, God loves all beings. Like shape of salvation, free us from darkness. Like a shape of salvation, freeing us from darkness. God loves all of us. We are one family. God loves all of us. We are one family. All divinities are one. All religions are one family. One humanity, many faiths. With the true sincerity, let us spread the love of God to the world.
对啊，我够不到。
Okay, I was just explaining that insults are always much better in Yiddish. So the first thing so if you don't understand it, just smile and nod. Okay, the first thing we decided, yes, it does matter. And one of the big things was intent. The intent to show compassion to people, that has to be spontaneous with no analysis, otherwise it becomes a transactional sort of situation.
有声音。
你
看我，你听我拔了，你再看一下。你听，你看，有区别吗？没有吗？我刚才听一句。
这个声音很糟糕。
And I find that when I give, I actually receive back as well. So when I'm working with someone who I'm showing compassion to, I actually feel better about myself because I've done it in a good way. The other interesting thing was that it doesn't have to be faith-based, because it is a basic function of humanity to show compassion to other people. So where we look at the fact that we are an international multi-faith thing, compassion transcends that, and it's actually a sort of form of self-realization that we can actually show compassion to someone else. It's one of those wonderful things where the more we give, the more we get back. So everyone profits. So briefly, that's what we sort of did. But there was lots of other great ideas that we had that we just didn't get around to putting down. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Wonderful. Here's table 2.
Thanks, everybody. We decided that yes, compassion it does matter too, and that it's often motivated by personal experience. We all shared here around the table that we have been extended compassion towards us, and how good that feels. And so by having had compassion extended to us, we see it as a gift that we have received, and we are encouraged to give our gift of love to others as well. We shared that when we are loved by others, they often role model compassion for us. It might be our parents, it might be a close friend who we feel safe with, and so we shared how we have the capacity to also role model compassion to others and how important it is. We talked about how important it is to listen to people so that we are able to do our best to put ourselves in their shoes, and so to be truly empathetic and compassionate. And we had some really beautiful sharing, some really honest and safe sharing, and I possibly have not done it justice, but certainly there was lots of inspiring conversation here today. Thank you.
I really like that point about role modelling, especially for the younger people as well, to make sure that the compassion stays true to itself. So I've got over here group 3.
We have had a wonderful discussion and sharing from very personal, some painful experience, but that discussions really enriched ourselves. We feel so blessed. yes, we all agreed motivation matter because it helps move forward. However, wrong motivation is not a motivation. Often it is very dangerous. One of them is a political motivation. How they want to gift, aid, money, food, but motivated for their own political power, greediness, not helping other people. That motivation is dangerous. Also, we have heard it is not too difficult to work and motivate ourselves to offer compassion to other people who need. But how about us? When oneself is really need so much compassion and help, support, but there isn't. And one of our group members had to go through very painful, very difficult, very sad experience because there wasn't that support and compassion coming forward. And it has taken many years to overcome. Now, how do we ask help and compassion when we need for our family, for our friends? Another one brought up is that it actually also differs different cultural background or circumstances or how we live, because it is so easy. That is your cultural background, that is easy for you to do so, but it is not easy for us. And I think especially in Australia, we are living with so many people from very different cultural backgrounds. We really have to understand that compassion or motivation can be interpreted quite differently. And another one member brought it up is, yes, we can offer compassion, help, love and care, but patience. We start with all goodwill and plan and action, but when we need patience year after year, how are we going to cope? How are we going to move forward? And the humility, that compassion we offer should be with humility, not with pride, not with the reward expecting, but it is with humility from our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We're just going to have to skip this group right here. We've got our spokesperson over here that needs to go back to his duties. So here we are.
Thanks, Mark. I was lucky enough to be nominated at the end, so I didn't really take too many notes during the discussion, but I did listen in for our group's discussion. It was really lovely to hear everyone being involved in a discussion, being respectful, even though we have different views, different ideas. Everyone was very respectful for each other's opinions. We did come up with we picked out 3 things that we thought came out of our discussion. So some of the things that we said was compassion is innate, but we felt that it should be exercised or done regularly, or the more you do it, I suppose, like Ari said, you feel better each time you do a deed like that or something. A good part of our discussion, or an interesting part of our discussion, was about how we feel when we are being compassionate. So do we feel like we should be helping or something like that, or do we genuinely feel the pain or the suffering of that person? Do we go to that level where we actually cry with that person, or we actually travel that journey with that person in that feeling of suffering? and is that true compassion going to that level? So that was just an interesting part of our discussion. We had some people that work in education, people that work in a lot of different areas. We had some discussion around how personally or through our organisations or through our workplaces we can role model and encourage people to be compassionate. And I suppose as a parent, that's one of the things I suppose I would like to lead my children as an example, as being compassionate. So we can all do that in all parts of our society. And I suppose that starts from within yourself, believing in yourself, loving yourself, and then role modelling that to the community and others. So, and then we felt that there is a component of solidarity and compassion as well. So that's a few of the things we touched on, but a lot of other good discussion within our table. So thank you. I'll hand back to Mark.
Thanks for that, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We also had a very enjoyable, interesting discussion and covered off a bunch of points. A lot of them have been already mentioned, but there's a couple that stood out. One of them was that we kind of thought that there's a few different parties in compassion. You've got the giver and the receiver, and then you've probably got the context of the society in which compassion is being shown. And we felt that from a receiver's perspective, the motivation may not matter. It really depend on the situation, on whether or not the receiver cared about the motivation of the person or people who are offering them or helping them in their time of challenge. From a giver's perspective, we think it's very important in terms of the motivation for compassion, because almost by definition, if you're not motivated by a feeling of compassion, you can't really have been said to have shown compassion. You may very well perform an act that could be, from an external perspective, be seen as compassionate or kind or generous, but it wouldn't be an act of compassion unless the true motivation was there in your heart. And I guess only you or God would know generally whether or not you've done an act of compassion or showing compassion, or whether you're doing it for some other less altruistic reason. And probably the final point was, with society, we feel that again the motivation matters a lot. If we're going to gain the benefits of love and stronger communities and better that whole social capital that comes from demonstrating and showing compassion in our societies, people having pure motives when they're performing those acts have a big bearing on whether or not you'd regard that, or it really does matter in that process of showing compassion. So, thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. On to the last table now, and then we move on for the final couple of functioning.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mark. You covered quite a lot of what we discussed, and we had some lively discussion at our table, and we decided that amongst most of us that the motivation for compassion is compassion. That's the motivation why we act. And we had a group of as you can see, young ones and old ones and in between, and being sincere in our acts of compassion and not thinking about what we're going to get in return was from our younger generation. Compassion and wisdom should be seen together. Who's being served? Am I doing it for me, to make me feel good, or am I doing it for the other person? And we also talked about cultural sensitivities and, you know, what could be some of the blockages that we have for showing our compassion, as to how it's going to be perceived, the embarrassment that we might feel if you offer a chair to an elderly person, a seat in a bus or a train, and they say, no, thank you very much. Where does that leave that young man standing going, do I do this again? Do I not do it again? Makes us scared to take that risk again. So sometimes we can be reluctant out of not wanting to share that other person's suffering, being scared or fearful to take it on. And I think everything else has been covered. Thanks very much.
But moving on, we've got our next guest here today. It's about a very important story from a gentleman of compassion presented by Mr. Mohammed Raza Azad. He's the gentleman who fled Afghanistan as a refugee in 2009. He crossed many countries and faced many challenges along the way, where he eventually found asylum back in Australia. So he's since been able to help thousands and thousands of people and have truly become a cherished member of society. So please put your hands together for our next guest, Mr. Mohammed Raza Azad.
Okay, sir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I would like to say thank you from each and every of you. Gave me the chance to come and talk here. It's a big privilege for me, and also letting me share my story about my journey, compassion, and as you just mentioned, my name is Mohammed, and I'm one of the former asylum seekers and refugees from Afghanistan. I don't know if we've got anyone from Afghanistan here. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Okay. First of all, I want to share a little bit about Afghanistan. As you can see in the PowerPoint, Afghanistan is, I mainly want to talk about a little bit about Afghanistan, about myself, about my journey, and why I'm here in Australia and what I'm doing in Australia quickly. So, with the PowerPoint. Yeah. So Afghanistan is located in Central Asia and has border with Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Iran in west, Pakistan in south and east, and China. And we've got a bit of border with China in northeast as well. And so the flag of Afghanistan, it's in 3 colors, and each color similar to the all other flags in the world. The Afghanistan's flag has got the colors have got meaning as well. So the black symbolizes Afghanistan travel past. Red means the bloodshed for Afghanistan's like the blood that we lost in for the Afghanistan independence, and the green represents hope for the future. And also because Afghanistan is an Islamic country, the color green is one of the colors that the Muslim loves a lot. And the people of Afghanistan, we've got similar to Australia, we've got people from a lot of different tribes, and we've got the biggest one is Pashtun and Tajik, Hazara that I belong to, and Uzbek, and then we also have Baluch, Turkmen, Pashtun, Nuristani, and Bayat, and also other few more small tribes. Kabul is the capital city of Afghanistan. The population of Afghanistan is about 32 million, and we've got about 34 small states, and the other big cities are Mazar, Herat, Kandahar, Ghazni, and Bamiyan. Bamiyan is I don't know if you've seen the news or if you've heard the news. We've got that Buddhist which is destroyed by Taliban a few years ago. And Afghanistan has got a lot of natural minerals and this sort of things. Very rich country by minerals, and So this is the main reason that we've got a lot of Afghani people from Afghanistan who got refuge in Australia. We've got war that has started about 40 years ago. We've got first of all, we had those, like the Soviet Army came to Afghanistan, Mujahideen fighting against the government and Soviet Army, and then we started having issues between Mujahideens. They would fighting against each other, and then the Taliban took, which was one of the dark side of Afghanistan's history, and then American and British forces started from 2001, and still we're having war. We are losing people every day, and since like for the last 40 few years, we are having this problem in Afghanistan. And Hazaras, like until 40 years ago, still the situation was a bit under control. Hazara is a group, minority group in Afghanistan that is the most persecuted group in Afghanistan. We've been killed by the King Abdul Rahman. We lost 63% of our population about 120 years ago, and we have since then, every time we were facing different type of issues by the government, by Taliban mostly in recently years, and still we're having problems. And the reason that we were having problems and left our countries, getting refuge in other countries, we were having a little bit of culture differences, religion or belief differences, language differences, political matters, and power issues. And the history says there's a big difference between the way that people are explaining about Hazaras. We believe that the Hazaras are mixed of Turkish, Mongolian, and culture side. We are very close to Mongolian people, and also in some areas, because we're mostly living in villages, Zarajat, the place that belongs to the Hazara people, we are a little bit different with the other areas. And also we belong to Shia Muslim that the Taliban, mostly they didn't like us. That's the reason most of our people have been killed, because they were thinking like in total, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, they are different. They're not part of Islam. They don't belong to Islam. They're using the name of Islam, and the way that they're thinking, for example, if they kill a Christian or Hindu or Jewish, they go straight away to paradise without being asked by God. The same way they're thinking about Shia Muslim as well. So that's why we've lost a lot of people just because they're thinking that we are infidel and we're not Muslim. And also our language is a bit different. We speak Azaragi, and which is mixed of Mongolian, Turkish, Dari, Persian, and also Arabic. Recently, because we are Muslim and we use a lot of Arabic words as well. Our language, Australia is the only country in the world that recognize our language as a different language. Like when we need Hazaragi, we get Hazaragi interpreter or translator. We don't need to be dealing with the other languages. And the history of Hazaras, we went there, and the situation that Hazaras are facing. And so this is Hazara people. This is a little bit of history about Afghanistan. If you go and search Google, you will see a lot of, like the first thing, if you search Hazara in Google, you're not seeing a good pictures. You will see mostly the pictures of explosion, target killing, and dead bodies and this sort of stuff. So this is the main reason that a lot of Hazara people, they left Afghanistan, they moved to other countries, and one of them, due to the war in Afghanistan, a lot of people they left Afghanistan. They went to the countries who are neighbors with Afghanistan. So my parents, they were refugees before I was born. So when I'm born in Iran. So when I was born, from the first second of my life, I was a refugee. Until I was in primary school in Iran, when I was in a refugee school, I didn't know that I belonged to Afghanistan, to a tribe called Azad in Afghanistan, because a lot of us, we were hiding our identity in other countries because of the documents. We didn't have documents, and when we were going outside, we were facing a lot of problems. And so I'm born in Iran. So my first second of my life, I was a refugee, and I've faced a lot of pains and persecution because of the reason that I belong to Afghanistan. I belong in Afghanistan. And when I was about 14, 15 years old, they kicked us out from Iran. So we moved back to Afghanistan. We thought this time we might go and make our life better. And but after staying maybe a couple months in Afghanistan, we couldn't find it safe because of the Taliban regime and because of the reason that they were thinking about Azari people. My father, he decided to take us somewhere else. So we moved to Pakistan this time. Again, we were refugee. And because of the lack of compassion in Afghanistan, we went to Pakistan. In Pakistan, we stayed a few years, and then what happened, the American, they took control of Afghanistan. So I decided again, let's go back to Afghanistan. Let's go and be part of the team to rebuild Afghanistan, to make Afghanistan safer for other people. I went to Afghanistan and started my job with the coalition forces. I started with French Army of work as a security guard with the French Army, and then interpreter with the Canadian Army, with the American Special Forces, and I lived there, I worked there for 8 years. And that became my biggest mistake, to put myself and my family's life in danger. Because not just the one who's working with the government, the rest of the family members will get in danger as well. What they do, they normally kidnap the family members of those who are working with the government and ask for surrender, and they kill both the family member and the person who's working. So I've been attacked twice. Luckily, I've been saved because I was saved because I believe my mother's prayer was supporting me, and because of her prayer, I was saved. So I decided to finish. I spoke with my family and I said, look, I can't work anymore in Afghanistan, so I need a safer place for myself and my family. I went to an NSA office in Pakistan, and I said, look, I'm working with American forces, I'm working with the Australian Army, I'm working with the British Army, and my life is in danger, what to do? And they said, yeah, we'll help you, but it might take around 14 years. So I said, 14 seconds, I can't, I don't know what's going to happen in 14 seconds. You're talking about 14 years back. Luckily at that time, Australia was accepting refugees. So I came by boat to Australia. I decided to put my life in danger and come to Australia by boat. You see a lot of people, a lot of propagandas in news saying refugees, boat people, so I'm one of them. Took me 4.5 months to get to Christmas Island, and then 4.5 months in Christmas Island. Luckily, I'm very lucky, I'm one in 1,000 to be able to claim protection visa and be able to settle in Australia. Been sent to Brisbane for a couple months, and then I got a job in Brisbane, went to Rockhampton for 3 months, and from beginning of 2010 till now, I'm just trying to finish the 3 months. 10 years living in Rockhampton now. And when I came to Rockhampton, I was very scared, confused, because it was a new country for me. I could speak a bit of English, but still, it was a big challenge for me. Different culture, and different people, different country, and especially when you go to countryside, the slang was a big issue for me. I remember when I was passing through people and people saying, "Hey, yeah, mate." For me, it was like wine, wine, and it was not like a small sentence, but it was a big challenge for me. And I know I had a friend also. His name was Haji. I used to work in Midworks as a recruitment officer, and he couldn't even speak word of English. He even didn't know how to read and write in his own language. He was from Pakistan. And I met him one day and I said, "Haji, how's everything going?" And in the meantime, I saw somebody crossing him and he said, "Yeah, mate." I said, "Yeah, mate." I said, "Hi, Haji, your English is very good. Like in a few months, you just improved very well." And he said, "Look, I don't know what did he say." I said, "I saw you, you just answered." He said, "No." He just said, "My way." I said, "My way too." So that was challenge for all of us when we can. And so that we started from my way. Like 10 years ago when I came, as I said, slang, which is a lot of people, when you see, when they're new, they might know that English or that language, but the stuff that we read in the book with the stuff that we use is a lot different. You know, like my way is just one small sentence. There's a lot of words. Like I'm doing part-time as a taxi driver, driving taxi in Rockhampton, and especially when the people are drunk, it becomes a challenge, big challenge for us. And like they make everything short. You know, like so again, like we should think every second what he's saying. And a lot of drunk people, when you ask them again, they get angry as well. And so we started with this type of things. And I worked two years in local midworks in Rocky, and then I've been offered a job through a settlement organization used to be called MDA, but recently they changed the name. It's called Multicultural Australia. So for the last 8 years, I'm working as a settlement officer and intake officer for MDA, and my main job is to promote compassion and work with refugees and link the refugees to the available services and communities in Rockhampton. I've faced a lot of difficulties when I came here, and I want them to suffer less than me. When I was new in Rockhampton, I received a lot of support through the church community. I was a Muslim person, but the church community in Rockhampton, they were amazing. Like we had Cameron Venables that time we had in Rockhampton, and now you're lucky that you've got it here. We had school communities, they were amazing support to all refugees, mainly Muslim community. We had local communities, we had neighbours that they did amazing job to settle refugees in Rockhampton. At the moment I'm working with around 1,000 refugees in Rockhampton, and recently we have families who have got reunited with their families, like when the father was here, refugee, after sponsored them, family members after 5-6 years, they just got reunited with them. So I'm working with them, and I'm helping them to get resettled here. And also in the meantime, we receive a lot of support from the other organizations, other church communities, from Sisters of Mercies in Rockhampton, church communities. So we are working all together to promote compassion and also help the new arrivals of like refugees, new arrivals to come and get settled in central Queensland. We also have offices in Brisbane and Toowoomba. I don't know if anyone from LDA is here, but we're doing a great job, I believe, and try to educate the community as well about why refugees are here, what they're doing, and why they're here, what they're suffering, and how we can help them to get settled and live better in Australia. Thank you.
Now, I think Mohammed was actually very modest, and there was an important piece of the story that he didn't mention. When I first met Mohammed, incredibly hardworking, but also he carried a deep burden with him, and that was that his wife, and at that time his son, Kumail, were stuck in Quetta in Pakistan and unable to join him in Australia. So I met Mohammed after that wait had been there for 3.5 years. And so one of the things that happened in Rockhampton, as the story was told, was that collectively school members, year principals and community members wrote to their local member to say, we believe that Mohammed is a good person and should be reunited with his family. Mohammed went back to visit Kenise to say, look, we're working on it. And he came back to Australia and Kenise found that she was pregnant. Very big trouble, my friend. And in God's grace, there was a tremendous movement of compassion. And permission was given for Kenise, Kumail, and the baby daughter, Jasmine, to come. And Mohammed flew down to meet them in Brisbane and came back up to Rockhampton. It was one of the most moving days for many of us to witness, because at that stage we had about 240 Hazara community members there. Most of them who were not on the shift at the meatworks came to witness this thing. And so lots of tears. And as Kenise came, one by one, these men, who also longed to be reunited with their families, brought flowers and put them at Kenise's feet. It was almost as if to say, yes, welcome. Welcome to Australia. We're so thrilled that you and Mohammed will be together. But also we hope and long for the same thing to happen to us. And so it was a very beautiful thing. The most extraordinary thing in some ways was seeing Mohammed's face as he walked through the doors holding the daughter that he had only heard about and seen in photographs. It was the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face, and I've known him for a couple of years by now. So it's a great joy, Mohammed, to have you visit us here and to hear something of your story. It's also a great joy to have Kenise and Kumail and Jasmine and Cheyenne and Daniel with you. We pray for God's blessing on you and your family always. Thank you.
With the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group. And if you're part of that group, I would like to invite you onto stage now, onto one of these seats, and we can get beginning. I'd like to introduce Bishop Cameron Venables, who's Anglican Bishop for the Western Region and Chair of the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group, who will be chairing this session.
Good afternoon, friends. It's a great joy to be together with you. And I think we'll start our final session, even though some people are just enjoying company and sweet food next door. The idea is that a number of questions have been texted during the course of today for the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group panel members to respond to. Some of you will be familiar with these beautiful people, some less so. So let me just give you a quick introduction. On my right, your left, we'll start with Syed and then come to Taisu. And Syed, I would say, comes from Toowoomba Mosque. Taisu from the Quakers, Toowoomba Quakers, but also state Quaker leadership. Mark Jochimson comes from the Baha'i community. Ari actually comes from the Jewish community, and though not residential in Toowoomba, treks up the hill and is a vital part of our ongoing monthly dialogue. Stephen Wanyoni is the multi-faith chaplain at University of Southern Queensland. Keep going this side, we've got Nicole Rangira, who's from the Catholic community, but is also part of the pastoral care group at the hospital, the team there. And we've got Evelyn, who's part of the Mormon community. Church of Jesus Christ. Sorry. I always mixed that up, I'm so sorry. Church of Latter-day Saints. And then we've got Maury, Pastor Maury, who's a retired Lutheran pastor. He assures me he's still active. As long as you don't pass him a football, he'll be fine. And then Dr. Arsalan, who's from the Sufi community. Jagdish, who's from the Christadelphians. And then John Agnew, who's from the Uniting Church. So we've got a couple of people unable to be here this afternoon, but there's enough wisdom gathered either side of me. The great thing from my point of view is that they don't know what the questions are. So the questions were texted to Mei Ling, and Mei Ling has collated them and texted them to me. It is now my great joy to pass them around. So the first question, what we might do is, for this first question, we might get one response either end. So the first question is, how does one consistently be compassionate while at once ensuring not to come across as, or in fact be, condescending? How can we be compassionate while not being condescending? Who would like to respond from this side? You guys get ready? So Evelyn's ready to go. You guys have it. So Evelyn, your response.
From my faith point of view, compassion comes from the heart, and the actions of compassion come from the heart and by guidance of the Holy Spirit. So if we act under God's direction through the Holy Ghost, it will never be condescending. I think we act out of love.
Thank you.
Can I just quickly? Can I just say that when we come alongside people, we see them that we are their guest, and that we listen to their story, and having listened to their story and being present to them, that then compassion rises, and I think that's when we're not condescending.
So if you're ever sick in the Toowoomba Base Hospital, please send for Nicole. She's part of the pastoral care team there, and they're a very compassionate bunch. Stephen, you're going to respond from this side?
Yeah, I think in doing compassionate acts, for me as a Christian, I think I fall back to the model of compassion, and I look up to Christ as the model of showing compassion. And look, he was in a position where he would be condescending at any level. He would be looking down at us like simple creatures, like people without knowledge, people without understanding. But he gave all that up so that, he would demonstrate his humility, and everything he did, it was out of the love for the people. So if I go on and perform acts of compassion sometimes on my own, after achieving some great feats, after seeing the results, it is only human that, you will start thinking, yeah, I can do it. But if there is a model who remains forever before you, I think so long as you focus on that model and what he did, you will be fine. And for me, the epitome of humility is Christ. He humbled himself even to dying on the cross for all of us. So to me, that is the only thing that can make me not be condescending after performing acts of kindness.
Okay, Ari has a slightly different view, and that's great, isn't it? We've all got different perspectives drawing from our own wells of sacred writing and faith experience.
I believe I'm an imperfect person. There are times when I am not going to be compassionate because I won't have the energy, I won't have the ability, I can be exhausted. If I was to pretend to be compassionate at that time, I would be condescending. But if I'm honest to the person that I'm dealing with, that I just don't have that compassion in me at the moment, I think that's fair enough. I think it is fair enough to be honest with someone and say, this is what I feel, this is what I think, and keep working on it. So for me, it's honesty, honesty of feeling, honesty of what's going on. So I'm just not going to be compassionate all the time. Hopefully 99.99999%, but there is going to be that time where for whatever reason, I just don't have it in me. So, but just keep on working on it.
Thank you. Sadie, happy to go for the second question? You want to add on to that one?
Assalamu alaikum. For me, compassion is a way of life in Islam. Since we recite 88 times, as Imam say, compassion, so it's a way of life. And if we can't help them, like I will say, we just say prayers to them. Make prayers, and hopefully all will be good, and your prayers will be answered by your God. So it's a way of life.
Thank you. Some great responses there. Maybe pass the mic to a person who's not yet responded. So John, you're ready to respond from that side, and maybe Mark is ready to respond from that side. The question is this. The question is, how can we help establish a collection of compassionate nations willing to put the interests of people in other nations ahead of our own? How can we help establish a collection of compassionate nations? Mike, you have to start?
That's a very good question. I think it's very wonderful that we encourage compassion between our neighbours, and I think we can understand that and do that. I think it's another thing to establish a society or nations in a way that they are able to interact or behave compassionately to other nations. The challenge we seem to face is that governments that are elected by nations are essentially having to represent the will of the people, and if they make decisions for the betterment of the world as opposed to what's best for their citizens, then they're not likely to be elected in the next election. So reflecting on it, I think it's essential that we educate the masses, or all of us need to believe or start thinking as though we're one family and humanity, we're all part of one country. This is very much of a high perspective. And then when we vote or when we're establishing those institutions that are representing us, they will have or feel obliged or have permission at least to make, let's call them compassionate, selfless decisions when it comes to what's best for humanity. And they may well not be what's best for that nation themselves. Until we can form some form of overarching vision for humanity that allows nations to cooperate and support other nations at the expense of their own, I think it's going to be very, very challenging for us to solve some of these global problems such as climate change and poverty and environmental degradation. So I think we need to really transform our thinking as individuals, and that thinking will then be reflected in our elected institutions, and those elected institutions will then be able to act in what's best for humanity as opposed just for ourselves. It all comes back to establishing that unity of mankind. So that's a long answer, but...
You did great. Yeah, did really great. Yeah, thank you, Mark. John, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, here we go. I suppose, to me, as we talked about before, compassion comes from the heart, and you can invite people to, or nations or whatever, to be part of a group, but if it's not in their heart, they're really better off not there because it's artificial. And so compassion starts with each and every one of us, and it's a bit like dropping a pebble in a pond, and it flows out from there. And so as we show compassion, then others will show compassion, But if it's not real and people are there at the table just to hold a seat because they are representing the country, but if it's not in their heart, well, I think the whole thing breaks down before you start it. So the simple answer to me was we need to pray about it.
Thanks, John. I saw Maurice hand. You want to add on to that, Maurice?
Look, I haven't been in this group very long, but I understand that UNESCO has come out here and so on. And that's one way I think we can work through them, through United Nations. The famous Roman Catholic theologian Hans Kuhn started an interfaith department in the University of Tübingen. Well, later on, the United Nations had him leading the movement to bring peace and so on amongst the religions and etc. and compassion. So I think that's one way we can do things.
Great to be reminded of that. Thank you. Can the mics go to somebody who's not yet responded? So I think it'll be Taisu on this stage and Dr. Arslan or Jagdish on this side. So you guys can bring it out. It is a sort of related question. Do you think there would be value in Toowoomba formally becoming a compassionate city with representation on the Australian Compassion Council? I think Tara would be interested in the response to this one. Do you think there will be value in Toowoomba formally becoming a compassionate city with representation on the Australian Compassion Council? Tracy, are you happy to respond? Okay. Jack, you happy to respond?
Yeah, actually listening to Terry this morning, the compassion at a national level took on a whole different meaning, and at a city level took on a whole different meaning. I had the privilege of, going to just chat with him personally and see what is this, how can a city be compassionate, how can a city be known to be compassionate, yet, compassion comes with motivation, it comes with the soul, it comes with all the things that are really personal. How do you make a whole city compassionate? And then he explained to me there are very simple programs that constitute compassion, which the city can sign up to. And one good example he gave me was, if there are people who have been picking rubbish in the bins and selling them, they waste bottles, and they're only given 5 cents per bottle. If you regrouped them and branded them differently, instead of them looking like they're just there to beg and collect 5 cents, you put together a program, so that we can officially recognize them, so that they are paid the value of what they put in. That is how a city can participate, and therefore I think Toowoomba would benefit from such if there are initiatives that will help the city, recognize the poorer people, the people that are disadvantaged. I think we will benefit from it.
Thanks, Stephen. Anybody wanting to yarn that? Evelyn?
Not being a Toowoomba person myself, but only an hour out. And last year when UNESCO came to visit, and we were at a meeting where a lot of the community people came and talked about their programs and how they were helping people in the community. I think Toowoomba's ready. I think Toowoomba is already a long way to becoming a compassionate city, and I think I don't see any reason why they couldn't be.
I think it's worth adding on that Toowoomba was the 3rd city in Queensland to declare itself a refugee-friendly zone. The mayor received 2 death threats following that. But there was a good sense of unity across the community about that. And there's been a good commitment across community commitment to Toowoomba being a city of peace and harmony. So I think you could be right that there's been a whole lot of preparation work gone on into that. All right, next question. We'll just throw it open. I'm not going to put people on the spot. In a recent Australian survey, I might put somebody on the spot here. In a recent Australian survey of 25,000 young people, mental health was named as the main issue facing their generation, followed by climate change. It used to be climate change. The last couple of years has been climate change. This survey was mental health, followed by climate change. So how is the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group engaged with young people? And the person I'd like to put on the spot for that is actually not on the stage. Mei Ling, can you come and just give an initial response to that? Usually Mei Ling actually puts us on the spot, so this is kind of, it's done with compassion, I just want to say that. But I think Mei Ling is actually quite well qualified to give some feedback, maybe followed by Nicole. Who's got the mic? Jay, can you pass the mic down to Mei Ling? Mei Ling is naturally a modest person, so this is costly, and I will probably pay for the next 3 months. But I think it's worth it.
Thank you very much, Bishop. So we have the Toowoomba Youth Peace Group, and they are a very energetic bunch of young people, ranging from grade 7 to grade 12, and actually we do have one from the university as well. And we meet every month, just like the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group. And we actually talk about issues that are, affecting them. And they actually, one of the things that they wanted to work on next year is actually on identity. Yeah. What is the question?
I think you're doing great. That's partly how we do it.
Can I put one of the members on the spot as well? So we do have members of the Toowoomba Youth Peace Group here, and actually there are two of them. Connie, could you stand up? And also Fatima. So maybe I think that this question will be better if they answer. Is it okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
You give Mei Ling the mic and you lose it. It's a great thing. Fatima, can you share something? I know that we're really looking forward to a youth presentation tomorrow, so just prime the pump for us then.
Right, sure. So how are we engaging with young people? So at the start of this year, we started creating this Under the Sky dialogue, where we advertised it at school and like at the friendship dinners at Pearland College. And it's where we, like the young people from school and everywhere, like under 25, from year 7 to 25. So we will gather like at a park, we'll have like a theme that we would talk about. And we just sit there, have some food, and just us young people talk about some of the issues that are going on around our city or the wider world. And we would sit there and talk and figure out like solutions to them, practical solutions to them. We did that, and we've also had a youth networking where we gathered groups like our group, MDA, the council, and who else was there? Emerge. I'm pretty sure we had a couple more groups. We gathered together, we went to council, Pearland College, Emerge, and they just shared information about what they do, what we do, and we talked about our plans and how we're going to work together to promote peace within Toowoomba City, and how we're going to engage the young people into like coming out of their comfort zone and into the wider world and engaging and becoming friendly. And do you want to talk about how we did that?
So one of the things that we discussed was how we're going to focus on identity as our project for next year. And in regards to the question, not just mental health we care about, but also social issues, and identity was the one that we came up with. How to accept who you are and in a way it also relates back to compassion as well, to understand yourself, then to understand other people and help them with their issues as well.
Great. Thank you very much. So looking forward to your presentation tomorrow afternoon. Nicole, do you want to add on to that?
Two things. My daughter Yentil's with this lovely group of Toowoomba Youth Peace, and I'm enormously proud of their energy and their enthusiasm and their commitment. They're a real gift to our community, aren't they? And so I think that's the fact that they've created a safe place for them to nourish their experience of what it means to be people who genuinely have something to offer us in our journey of peace and compassion is wonderful. The second thing is that I am every day visiting people in mental health at our hospital, and they're very, very vulnerable, and they just need us to have that compassion for them, and to find ways forward, and to have safe places and care. And so I believe that our young people will focus on their identity and allow them to create a safe place to explore all of that, but also that they will be mindful of what it means to care for themselves in body, mind and spirit, that they will actually hopefully encourage all of us to do the same, because our people with mental health issues, all of us, all of us, no one's excluded from what it means to care for our mental health. But our people who are unwell and in hospital are one thing, they're safe. We have people throughout our community, in our families, in our churches, right across the board, who are vulnerable with their mental health, and we all need to be looking out and finding ways and opportunities to create safe places for them.
Thanks, Nicole. I think really valuable stuff there. As a school chaplain, actually, most school chaplains operate under the research that between 20 and 25% of any high school population are living with a diagnosed or undiagnosed depression or anxiety. So it's an extraordinary amount of mental health issues out there in the community, particularly among young people. Jack, do you want to add on?
Yes, thank you, Cameron. I just was in the television that I watched, I think yesterday morning, about this issue. And it said that a lot of parents are either not able to diagnose that the children are suffering through mental case, or they're denying the children are suffering from mental and not accepting that the child is suffering. While the child is suffering, the parents are ignoring and not taking right steps very early in the age to either seek a doctor's advice or to psychological advice or whatever medical advice they have to take. And the program was designed to educate parents to please, and was pleading. This lady, she was a doctorate in psychology. She was pleading with parents, please accept, if you think a misbehavior or any sort of behavior or anything that your child is going through while they are young, please accept and take action right there and then, rather than ignoring, oh, my son is all right, oh, my daughter is all right. No, it's just a normal thing and it will be all right. She says it will not be all right when they grow up. So that's another thing that I wanted to share here, that sometimes it's a parent's neglect of or not accepting that the child is going through a mental problem at a very early age.
Thanks, Jack. I think really important insight there. Siri has just clicked in on my phone, obviously wants to ask a question. This one is, I think, important and challenging. So I'm not going to pick on anybody particularly, but if you'd like to, be ready. If compassion is for all people, what compassion does the faith of TIWG members offer to those in our community, to those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual or intersex? What compassion does our faith offer to those in our community who are LGBTIQ+. I saw Taisi first, and then we'll come to you.
The Quakers don't have any written doctrines or instructions or rituals, but we do have advice. And I just like to read a very short one. Do you respect that of God in every person, though it may be expressed in unfamiliar ways or be difficult to discern? Each of us has a particular experience of God, and each must find the way to be true to it. Even though Quakers are known we do respect other people's way of worshiping God and living. And one thing that there is a God in everyone. We really mean everyone. In spite of they may be different in their living, in their relationship, and the Quakers churches or meetings were the first group in Australia officially decided to give a blessing to same-sex union. That was well before referendum. I think what I would like to share with you is that because that there is a God in everyone, 350 years, Quakers refused to take arms and kill any person, not if or but. It's just no negotiations. We don't negotiate about on that principle. It's a peace testimony. And to me, we don't use the word compassion very often at all, but more of social justice. But the fact that we respect everyone because there is a God in every person, and we refuse to harm anyone, I think that itself is an act of compassion. And that really includes everyone. Doesn't matter where they live, what their religions are, what their lifestyles are. And that's my contribution.
It's a great contribution. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Arsalan?
Pass the baton.
Did you pass the baton?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, John, go ahead.
So, to me, it's about God loves all of us and that He loves them, and I think we need to assure them of God's love and that God loves them as much as He loves me and all of us. We're all His children.
Thank you. It's a shame Sawan's not here, actually, Hindu representative, because she, I think, will be saying that wonderful greeting in Sanskrit, Namaste, picks up on what Tosu was saying, the divine in me greets the divine in you. And somehow there is something of the divine in each of us, and sometimes we neglect that in the language we use.
What is compassion? What we heard today mostly was about the brain and decision by the brain. It is not right. Sorry to say that, you can kick me out. It is out of heart. You can't measure compassion, you can't decide about it. Those people that we consider them as lesbians or the other ones, we were just now, or lovely young children, and this lady were talking about the people with mental illness and sickness. If we put them on a corner and hit them or slay them with something, it makes the things worse. Where is love? How do we show our love to them? How do we open our arms and welcome them back to the society? It's not good to condemn them. How we show the love to them. And that we do that from the time they are our children. We ignore them and then we condemn them. A few months ago, I was speaking to some Catholic school children. I said to them, I'm yesterday, you are tomorrow. Do we deal with them as they are tomorrow? Do we save the resources for them? Do we give time to them? We only condemn them and we say, I'm the parents and you are the child. I have dealt with a few of these people that they are out of what we think is wrong, right, and they are doing wrong. They have good hearts. They are victims of this behavior of some opportunists. Have compassion towards them, love them, and you will see the results. That's all I know.
Thanks, Barry. You want to add on? Or are you just ready for the
Oh,
next question?
I just want to say, I'll back him up with a simple statement. We go into prison ministry, and our motto is listen, listen, love, love.
Yeah, great.
And that's all you need.
Thanks, Murray. Well, yeah, go for it, Ari.
On the mental health in young people, I think one thing we tend to overlook is that 20% of young people have been sexually abused by the time they're 18. So that would cause depression, that would cause gender confusion, that would cause a lot of issues. So we have to look at that. And that's only sexual abuse, not domestic, whatever. I believe a person is a person is a person, and I accept people. If the label maker makes you feel comfortable who you are, then you can use it. If putting labels on yourself or having other people put labels on you and it doesn't help, get rid of the labels. Because everyone ultimately is a human being made in the image of God. Now God must have 20 billion faces because we're all different. But it's that level of acceptance of where people are and who they are is the only way that we're going to build a cohesive and harmonious society.
Thank you. We've spoken about compassion for people. The next question actually challenges us to potentially look more broadly. Can your religions, this is to Interfaith working group members, can your religion's understanding of compassion be extended to the plants and animals of our environment, or is it limited only to humanity? Say it, I saw your hand.
About 2 months ago, we had a talk in the mosque to make the mosque self-sustainable. So it's the act of compassion for the environment. We have our solar panel up for the first building, and then we are looking for funds for the second building. So to me, that is we take care of the environment. So in the mosque itself, we have to start to be what they call it, environmental friendly, and this part of the compassion. But as for me as a farmer, my farm is also we use rainwater, and we use solar panels, so we do not really destroy the surrounding area. But I believe the mosque in Toowoomba will start kickstart with the environment friendly, and is one of the act of compassion.
Thanks, Said. On this side, Jake.
The Bible says that God created all living beings. And in all living beings includes human beings, plants, animals, insects, creatures, and all creeping animals. So that are all beings. So compassion and compassionate should be to all beings, not only to human beings. This includes plant. That's why we go and water plants. We go and if you see our plants dying, our flowers dying, we feel. If you plant a tree and if the tree starts to die, you feel for it. So lots of people speak to the plant. We speak to our animals. I know some people who have got pets, cows, dogs, cats. They speak to them. And when they are sick, we cry more for them than we cry to ourselves. So there is a compassion on all things. I mean, though the animals and the plant, they can't speak, but you cut them, they bleed. The trees bleed. And and the cats and the rats, and they all got blood. If you cut them, you can see tears in their eyes. When they look at the cow, when they look at you, the horse, when they look at you, when you're in problem, they cry too. So they got emotions. So therefore, their emotions are turned into compassion, and we have to show that compassion both sides. They show compassion without speaking. I mean, we don't know them, but they have compassion on you. And some dogs, how they protect their owners. They have got compassion. They love, and there's will love. So there's an interaction between human beings and plants and all living beings.
I think it was Gandhi who said, till every human being lives in harmony with nature, we are not intelligent beings.
There is a church in Sherwood. I think it's Anglican church. Once a year, they have a service for animals. And from the early morning, the church is open, and these animals come there and do whatever they want, and they bless them and they go. This is one part of the life. God has created all creatures, yes. Has created man, yes. Has given him a heart and a brain, two links of the chain. And another chain in between, it is the wisdom and knowledge. When we abuse the nature, we dig the resources and send them overseas. In 50 years, we don't have enough there to fill the gaps. Isn't it abusing the nature? It is. We leave nothing for other creatures. How many animals in Australia are getting distinguished every day? Are we responsible or not? As simple as that. If you go on Facebook, you will see a lot of examples of the animals, how they are protecting their owners. Because they don't expect anything. They just have compassion and show their love. Show your love to them and they will show love to you. I don't want to be an imam and give you an explanation. When my wife died, 5 of our most beautiful trees died in a week time. That is because she was talking to them. So please do that and you will see.
It's a very beautiful way to end our responses to that question. There is this year, there's been an increasing dialogue between faith leaders about the impact of climate change. And I think we're just going to see a progressively larger dialogue around that being brought to political decision making. Yes, Stacey.
I have mentioned or shared a peace testimony, and we have another 2 testimonies, simplicity and earth care. And we try to live a simple way. I know I have too many books, so I buy too many books. However, simple way, and also earth care, not only living things, or anything. Now, this isn't coming from my Korean ancestors' background belief, not exactly Quakers' belief, that Spirit of God in everything, not only in living things, but in all things. In the river, ocean, trees, of course, and the rocks, and the Spirit of God. And I think we do have a responsibility to respect all of it, because the Spirit of God is in everything.
Yes, Mark. Yeah. You can go to the next one as well.
I prefer to talk on this one.
Yeah.
You can go to the next one. You can have know what the next one is.
Yeah.
Do you?
I'm excited about the next one.
It's a week. From a Baha'i perspective, we love God's creation, and we feel that the only the suffering that's experienced by our biosphere and the degradation of the biosphere is a reflection on the way in which humanity is thinking and behaving. And the only way we are possibly going to solve the suffering that the animal kingdom and our environment is experiencing is to bring about a unification of humanity in a just and peaceful way. Because when we look at where the destruction's occurring in the Amazon or in our reefs or in the carbon capture or in the degradation of all areas of the world, typically the root cause of that suffering from the animals is due to man's greed, corruption, injustice, inequality, desperation, all those things that are causing the suffering and degradation of the nature are due to shortcomings in mankind's spirituality, our morals, our virtues, our thinking. And so from a Baha'i perspective, we see the way to solve the suffering of the animals and the environment is to heighten or bring about that unification of mankind. And that's, we think, the shortest way home to be able to really make the world a better place for the animals.
Thanks, Mark. Ari, please feel free to respond to this one because the next question is completely different.
Okay. In Judaism, did this die? Must be a computer because they all hate me. So while that's happening, in Judaism we have a concept called tikkun olam. Tikkun olam is the theory of repairing the earth. It means that you must do sustainable economic development, that you must replant what you dig up, you must make sure that you leave the earth in a better way than you got it from your parents. The oldest conservation fund in the world is Keren L'Chaim L'Israel, the Jewish National Fund, and for over 130 years its own aim has been to plant trees in the Holy Land. Henceforth, if you go to Israel, it is now green. It has trees and forests that date back 100 years, and it's a constant renewal. And I think that is the important thing for me. It's part of our commitment to making sure the world keeps going. That's brief.
Thanks, Ari. Maylin, can we just flick on two questions and then we'll come back to the one we've skipped over. The next question may be a bit controversial for some people, may not be. But I'd like at least one response from either side. The question is this, very topical. Given the growing awareness of what is happening to Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, what could compassion demand from us in response? I'll read it again just to give you a bit more thinking time. Given the growing awareness of what is happening to Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, what could compassion demand from us in response? This new banner is coming that way. Johnny, happy to start?
I'll happy. Yeah. Difficult because fair way, but to the Muslim people in Australia, I think that we can reassure them of our love for them, that we're all God's people there again, but yeah, that we don't, and they can hopefully reassure their brothers or sisters, if I can use that language, back there, that there are people in some parts of the world who don't share that problems that they go through. But we can really, it's difficult for me to have the only that I can talk to is Muslims that I know here in Australia and to reassure them.
Thank you, John. It's a lovely introduction, really, to say it. So
we can't do really much, unless Australia want to take them. But what the act of compassion that we can do now is, I believe, supplication, making du'as and prayers for them for Allah, to God, to help, to seek God help to ensure that the suffering will be lesser, and we can also make supplication, make prayers so that the leaders there God will give them awareness not to, do such cruelty to mankind. So the only act of compassion I can do for now is to make dua in every prayers, inshallah.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a mic there.
And I think you're right, John, that we affirm our love for our Muslim brothers and sisters here, and that we certainly pray, and perhaps it's that sense of solidarity, that we stand with them, that we somehow kind of have an opportunity somehow to express to them in some letter or email or some way of saying you are not alone, that it is wrong the way you're being treated, that we want to extend our love and concern and hold the hope, and have that message put to them. Perhaps is an extension then of our love and our prayers and our reaching out to them.
Thanks, Nicole. Yes, David?
Yeah, to me the issue of what is happening in the Xinjiang and even in Myanmar is really complex, it's really confusing. I recently attended a conference on religious extremism, and there was somebody from Amnesty International who gave really horrendous statistics about what is happening in China to the Muslims and even in Myanmar. What was really interesting is that although there is a voice from a whole lot of what is called generally as Islamic nations on separate issues, there seems to be a silence from the major Islamic nations. Now, I'm not condemning anybody, but there seems to be a silence there, and that, I think, to the oppressors comes through as though these are not legitimate Muslims. They just kind of pretend Muslims, if I may say that. At our level, I think we can do what we can do at our level and lobby, the governments involved. We have access to Chinese officials, I think. They are in Canberra or somewhere in Sydney, I don't know. But I think we have access. So if at our level we can lobby, I think that is a good start. But what really concerns me is there seemed to be a lack of attention from the nations that would probably speak the loudest about it, and China and Myanmar would respond. If there was a voice from some of those nations, I'm sure China would pay attention. If there was a voice from some of those nations, I'm sure Myanmar would pay attention.
Thank you. That's a very thoughtful response. Friends, I'm conscious of time, and I'm just so thankful for the richness of the responses to the questions. The question we skipped over is going to be very challenging for these guys, because I'm actually going to ask each of them in less than 30 seconds to give one example of a teaching in your faith about compassion. Now, some of my sisters and brothers here are gifted with conciseness, and some are not. I am not. I just want to fess up straight away. I would find this very challenging. So it could be just one verse or one word. There is not enough time for a parable, which would really frustrate me, but that's okay. So something from each of the participants that your faith teaches about compassion. So if we're going to start with Sayed and then come across this way, which means, John, the pressure's on you because you can't double up. No, take it back, you can. Let's say it.
What I know is we must have humility, humble. To be humble is the key factor for us to embrace compassion and also to achieve wisdom.
Thank you.
We don't teach because we share and we work together. When there is any cause or sections in our community need our support, we work together, but we don't teach our young people.
Thank you.
Breathe not the sins of others so long as thou art thyself a sinner. In other words, humility comes first, and it should avoid any sort of sense of condescending, beating our, or polluting our sense of compassion.
I quote Hillel the Elder when asked what is the full purport of the Torah. He had to stand on his left foot with his right foot in the air, and if he put his right foot down before he was finished, the king was going to chop his head off. So he picked up his right foot and said, what is hateful to you, don't do to anyone else. The rest is commentary, go and learn it. Put his foot down and left.
Well, I'll quote from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus was moved with compassion. When he saw people hungry, he multiplied bread and they ate. All of them ate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Following on nicely from that, Stephen, Jesus wept. He wept when Mary and Martha's brother Lazarus died, and he was moved. It was an experience that had him at the pit of his stomach, where he was moved with compassion, and so that is our model of compassion.
Thanks, Nicole.
As I have loved you, love one another. And in the example of the Good Samaritan, the story that he told there about how we should take care of each other, that Good Samaritan went the extra mile to look after the bruised and battered man. And so that's what compassion is. He felt for that man that was on the side of the road, despite the fact that they wouldn't interact as a Samaritan and a Jew, but he still had that love. And so that's from the New Testament and a story from Jesus. And as I have loved you, love one another.
Thanks, Emma. Laurie?
In our group today, in our group discussion, I just love this word that comes up, and I just want to couple that with compassion, that is solidarity.
Thank you.
Can I ask what was the question, please?
Something from the wisdom of your faith that expresses something important about compassion in less than 30 seconds.
In the Holy Book of Quran, the Book of Islam, God says, the poor has 15% share in your wealth.
Jesus said that least you have done one of these my people, you have done unto me.
I'm involved in a prison ministry, and I can say I've been 15 weeks inside prison. But in that, we go in there as God's servants. We go and accept those prisoners as they are. We ask no questions, but that doesn't mean we approve of what they've done, but we accept them as God's children and treat them as such.
Thanks, John. Excellent. There was just one more question that came in, and that was from Tabitha, really asking us about, well, what do we think happens next? That actually forms the last section of our work tomorrow afternoon. So Tabitha, don't think we're not going to do that question. We're actually going to workshop that question collectively tomorrow afternoon. So really looking forward to that, really grateful for your question. Princess actually sent through a poem instead of sending through a question. That's kind of creative, kind of lovely, and I'd love for us to close this time together by reading that, if that's okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. When I said we don't teach our young people at our Quaker meetings, I think to my English, What I meant was that we don't try to teach them, but we discuss and we work together.
Okay, thanks for qualifying that. So this is the poem called Compassion, written today. Yeah. In the core of my being is light. Shrouding that light is fluid, veins, arteries, viscera, muscles, bones and skin. And then, in the world outside, there you are. Embroiled in the bloom and gloom of your experiences, there you are. I see you, but I do not see past the skin. I see not past the muscles, bones, fluid, veins, arteries and viscera. I see not the core of your being. I see not the light within you. I wonder why I do not see light in you. I realise that like you, I too have been embroiled in the bloom and gloom of my experiences. Now I understand. I can only see light in you if I look within me and find my own light. Princess, thank you for writing that and for sharing it. And friends, can I ask you to thank members of the Toowoomba Interfaith Working Group for their thoughtful responses this afternoon.
No, everyone can just stay up here for the last little moment. I've got a few last little gifts to hand out on behalf of everybody for coming along today. These.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just a last little summary that came to mind after hearing everybody's talks over the entire day, and I think a good way to describe it would be compassion is from the heart. It is subjective and unmeasurable. It is innate within all of us, but to ensure we have a compassionate future, we must all practice and teach compassion to all beings every day. And so I'll leave you there, and I hope you've all had a fantastic event and have some beautiful points to take away and reflect on this evening. And for all of those of you staying in our beautiful city tonight, I hope you enjoy it and make the most of your time here in Toowoomba. Tomorrow we've got the day 2, we'll start around 9 to 9:30 as well, similar structure to today. I think we're finishing about an hour earlier. But I'd like to give a big thanks to all of our guests once again who have spoken this afternoon and throughout the course of the day, whether you're on the crowd as well, and to all of our guests who have blessed us with your presence. So that will conclude the first day of the 2019 International Interfaith Peace Conference. So I bid you farewell.